Super BS
presents. Brink here. Today I had the pleasure of chatting with Ben Ruiz, one half of Team Colorblind, the developers responsible for Aztez. We talked about the evolving Steam market, the Nintendo Switch, porting games to consoles, and much more. Hope you all enjoy. Thanks. Hey, anyways, so thank you for joining me today. If you wouldn't mind, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Ben Ruiz. I'm one half of Team Colorblind. We're the creators of Aztez, which just came out a couple months ago on Steam.
Yeah, it's really cool, man. I actually found out about it on Kotaku, but I've noticed, like, looking up a little bit more about it, it's been kind of everywhere. Total Biscuit,
yeah.
like, ton of other people.
Mm-hmm. Did you happen to see the Engadget article that came out like a week and a half ago?
Yes, I did read
Okay,
that.
good. Just making sure that's on the table. Like, we are not private about anything, but it is important that you know that, we experienced a pretty catastrophic tanking of the game, which in itself is an interesting conversation. So, yeah, that's just making sure it's all out there.
Yeah, which brings me to ask, like, since you've had so much, like, I guess, like, video game coverage, hasn't it come back though? Like, hasn't people like started getting interest again? This generated buzz, or
not really. I mean, if you look at the numbers, it's like, we get these little spikes every time someone mentions the game. Like Total Biscuit talks about the game. He actually mentioned it a couple different times, like once or twice on his podcast, and then of course he had like his dedicated video for it. But whenever these things happen, there's a little spike in the sales, and that's about it. Like, it doesn't really... The way I've always said it, and I've done 100% of the marketing for the game since it started. So I've had the responsibility, but I am not a marketer. I have no idea what I'm doing. Like, the idea is that, eventually one of these things, which is, metaphorically a match, becomes the big fire that sells your game, but none of those things have ever become a big fire. So despite the fact that we had years and years and years of coverage and it seemed to really go well, things shifted weirdly in the last year or two, and we just couldn't get anyone to care. So yeah, it's a really interesting timeline.
Yeah, and I do want to cover that in just a minute more about that, because I that's, we'll talk a little bit about Steam and stuff. But before I get into that, how long have you been in the video games industry for?
Since 2005, very beginning of 2005.
Oh, wow.
As a professional, I mean, I'd been a hobbyist for a couple years before that, but yeah, since however many years that's been.
Oh my goodness.
I'm not good at numbers.
12 years?
What is that? 12 years? Yeah, something like that. So I worked on, my first job right out of college was on an Xbox Live Arcade game. That tanked.
What was it called, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh my god, it was called Shred Nebula. If you've heard of it, I'm going to lose my mind.
That does sound familiar.
No one heard of it.
I know, that sounds familiar.
It does, okay.
I'm literally checking out the picture of this right now, because I used to follow the indie game. Yeah, this picture looks familiar. I didn't play it, but I did get to see a picture of this.
Yeah. It was weird. It was like it was a small group of just graduates and like an old vet, and it kind of just took too long, like as we started development, it was like the Braid and World of Goo golden age, right? And then we kind of like just missed that train. But I worked on that and I shipped that and went on to work at Flashbang Studios, and while we were there, we did a series of like experimental web games at blurst.com. And that was right when Unity had its web player, like when that was still a thing for a while, like people were playing games just right in their browser. And we did a whole bunch of weird experimental things there and didn't make any money off of it, which was the point. We were like sustaining ourselves in other ways. And then it was a couple years of contract work before Matthew, my boss at Flashbang, and I started Aztez.
Oh, and started Team Colorblind?
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
So you mentioned you worked at Flashbang Games?
Flashbang Studios.
Studios. So it was just Xbox Live Arcade games and the indie games in Unity? Or?
Oh no, sorry. So the game that I worked on out of college, Shred Nebula, that was at Crunch Time Games.
Okay.
And then I went from there to Flashbang.
Oh, okay. And then you guys did mainly the Unity browser games type stuff.
Yeah, we had done that like for fun while we did contract work for like some corporate clients, and that was actually a group of like 6 or 7 dudes. And we did the fun thing for a couple years, and that was all good, but like we were intentionally not making a lot of money. And then those guys all kind of split off to go back to school and start families and, get better paying jobs. And when the dust settled, it was just Matthew and I. So that's kind of what happened there.
And how long have you guys been now Team Colorblind?
Officially since the beginning of 2012.
Okay,
so
so
him and I
5
had been
years.
working on the prototype. Yeah, him and I had been working on the prototype for maybe a year off and on. And I had been working on it like in the evenings for maybe a year or two before that. So officially, 5 years, I guess.
So for the people who are listening who may not know much about Aztez, could you describe the game a little bit?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of like, it's the meat of the game is a very technical beat 'em up, Devil May Cry, God of War, Bayonetta, that type of game. And it's wrapped up in this Risk-like board game where instead of rolling dice to resolve problems, you have these little real-time fighting segments.
Yeah, that's really,
You're
really...
just bouncing back and forth between the two.
Yeah, that's really, really cool. It kind of almost reminds me of, do you remember the Super Nintendo game Populus? Or not Populus.
Yeah, of course.
ActRaiser.
Yeah, I do remember Populus.
Yeah, ActRaiser, because ActRaiser had that Populus segment.
Yes, yeah, we get the ActRaiser thing all the time, and it's like, it doesn't even bother me. It's like, I loved ActRaiser so much.
Oh, it's the best.
And, it was just like a weird mix of such bizarre things, and yeah, I loved it.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And so Aztez is this beat-em-up brawler. Is that the style of games that you guys like to play, or what drew you to make that style of game?
Well, it's weird. For me, absolutely. Like, beat-em-ups are my favorite type of game, period. Always have been since I was little, but Matthew is kind of like, he's kind of like passion agnostic. Like, when it comes to everything, he just takes everything on a case-by-case basis. I wouldn't say he really has, like, a genre he's particularly passionate about, but his whole thing is, like, he just likes solving technical problems. So when I said work on a beat-em-up with me that will involve all this insane animation technology and all of this, he's like, yeah, that sounds enjoyable, right?
That sounds awesome to have this person who's just so technical focused working with you.
Oh, yeah, no, he enables me. It's like, I want to do this crazy thing. He's like, okay, give me a day. And then he hands me some tool.
Did you guys create it in Unity then? Were you using like C# or what game engine were you?
We have been using Unity. Flashbang used Unity. Like, him and I have had our faces buried in Unity since 2007, I guess, at this point. But I think Aztez started in Unity Script, which was like their own weird version of JavaScript. And then I think Matthew eventually changed it all to C# for reasons that probably make sense that I don't understand.
Yeah, it's probably more universal in case you guys want to do other stuff with it too in the future.
That sounds right.
How
I don't program, so I'm like in the dark when it comes to this kind
Did
of
you
stuff.
do the art then for the game?
I did everything but the code.
Wow.
So, like, my whole thing is animation, effects, objects. I did all the combat, all the environments. I'm the artist. I'm the creative nerd. And then Matthew's just like this insane everything else kind of guy,
Wow.
So,
Okay, that's awesome, man. It sounds like a great duo. Like you've got...
It's great. I love working with him so much.
Yeah, it's amazing, man. So, did the game change at all along the way, or were you just kind of like you had your vision and your goal and you went through and you're like, I'm going to do this for 5 straight years?
Well, sort of. I mean, I always had a pretty clear vision of what I wanted the combat to look like. Although I do tend to design organically where I'll make a few things, try them out, see how they feel, and then go from there. But I did always have a clear vision. As far as the other half of the game went, like that unfortunately went through a couple massive like redos. And I think that's kind of why we goofed is we spent way too long trying to perfect this other half of the game that it wasn't even the reason people were going to be buying it. We were just trying to give people something slightly more interesting to do, but it ate so much time. So yes, that half of the game got redone 3 times, I think, something like that.
I assume you're talking about the board game part of it?
The board game side, yeah.
Because that is always the trickiest part, I feel like, because there's so many cool things you could do.
Right.
Oh, man, that's...
Yeah.
Who wrote the music for the game?
It was 2 people. One is a old friend of mine who uses an alias named H.G. Pendleton, or Templeton. And I've worked with this dude for a really long time. He's like a trailer guy, like he's had a couple placements in like X-Men movies.
Oh, wow.
Some
That's
Harry
huge.
Potter stuff. Yeah, like I knew him when he was first trying to get into games for fun. And he ended up getting a couple more jobs because of that. So, like, he does really great stuff for me for little to nothing, which is awesome. He's just a great dude. And then a couple of the songs from the game were written by an artist called Lorne, who does, like, really, really amazing scary, dark German sex dungeon electronic songs, and we love him so much. And we just hit him up one day. It was like, hey man, would you be willing to do like a couple games? And he just surprised and was like, yeah, that sounds dope. So
that is awesome.
We got a couple songs out of Lorne, and for anyone listening, I highly suggest going and checking out Lorne if you like scary music.
Is he on like Bandcamp or somewhere that people could find him?
Yeah, he has a Bandcamp account. I see plenty of his stuff's on Spotify. Like, he's not difficult to find.
Okay,
yeah.
Lorne. Okay. Yeah. So we're gonna talk about this big time soon, just because the Engadget thing is so interesting. But right now, before we get to that, what do you have any plans for Aztez? Like short term, long term? Are you guys gonna add anything to it? Port it to a console?
Yeah, well, I mean, the console ports are absolutely happening right now. They're actually mostly done. So the problem with, ports to a console is just the certification process. So that's unfortunately all Matthew. There's very little for me to do there. It does not require a lot of art or, things that are sort of in my skill set. But that's going to happen for sure. Unfortunately, it was one of those things where it's like we knew we'd be in this period where Matthew would be spending his time porting. I would have loved to have been making additional content, but we made $0. You know what I'm saying? So I unfortunately had to bounce off and start working for someone else. And I looked out and found something awesome, but I'm not really in the position to make more content.
I totally understand. Us here at Super BS are huge fans of the Nintendo Switch. Is that hopefully one of the things you guys are?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you happen to have one of those?
Nintendo Switch, PS4, Xbox One. I have one. I love it. I think it's awesome. And the most rabid response from any console that we've had is from the Switch fan base for sure. They're like, we want this on the Switch right now. It's the perfect Switch game. Because every Switch user has like, I play this on the TV, I play this on the toilet, I play this on the bus, and it's like Aztez would be perfect for all those things, so please do it. So of course we're going to.
Yeah, because honestly, like, I rarely play PC games. I checked out Aztez because it looks so interesting, but the second it comes on Switch, I'm going to pick it up and love it because
awesome.
That's
great.
It just, the idea is, for me, I do a lot of commuting, and it's just great to be able to take, hey, I'm going to pick up my Switch, take it on the go. And I before we get into the Steam stuff, I don't know if you've been reading, but games like Flame in the Flood and games that didn't do so well on their first run have actually been doing really well on Switch because there's not the deluge of content like everybody else has right now.
Yeah, we have been hearing that a lot, actually. Like, we've talked to a couple other of our indie game developer friends, and they're saying, here's what we did on Steam, and here's what we did on PS4 or Switch, and it's magnitudes greater, And this is one of those things that I sort of goofed to, and I mentioned this in the article. It's like, I didn't realize that had happened. Like, I thought everyone was still on the PC, when in reality, people had fractured right back onto the consoles now that they're not these, like, billion-dollar luxury devices anymore. So, yeah, we have heard that from many sources, and it's one of the reasons, like, we still have a little bit of hope, for, like, making plus $0 for ourselves.
No, and I think you guys will hit that. And I think console ports are huge because, you mentioned this in your Engadget interview, that Steam had released, 40 games the same day you guys released Aztez?
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
And I want to say I read somewhere that they released 2,000 games a month now on Steam, if not more.
Yep.
Yep. So this brings me to a question that I've asked everybody, but in your guys' case, it's super different. What do you guys see as a sort of trend in the game industry? Like, what do you see as, like, the future? Because you were a part of the deluge that I thought was going to make it. When I read that article, I was like, you had a lot of coverage. This is really strange. I thought it was the 39 other games that came out that day that would be saying they didn't go plus. But what do you guys think's happening with this crazy, like, games? I know it's good that games are easier to make, but what do you think the future brings when there are 2,000 games a month on Steam?
Yeah, man, it's crazy because, like, there's a good analog, and that's the App Store, right? The App Store never became less of an insane mess. What has happened over time on something like the App Store is that, like, the importance of curators became more important. I am by no means professional when it comes to this kind of stuff, but I don't see why games would be any different. Like we got this mystery spike of sales one day a couple weeks ago for no conceivable reason. It wasn't mentioned anywhere on the internet. The only thing we could see was that it happened somewhere on Steam, purely on Steam, and we believe that was just some high-level curator who happened to mention it at the right time of the day, and a whole bunch of people saw it and went and bought it. So there's not like everyone can make a game is not going to change. That's done and dusted. Like, that's the future no matter what happens. And so the only thing I can think of is that it's going to be up to Tastemakers to say, this is what's good, this is what's bad, this is what's don't bother. And one of the weird things that I noticed with Aztez, and this is one of those one of those shifts I was talking about earlier from the last couple of years. For a long time we had no issue whatsoever getting coverage, and then all of a sudden we have a release date back in May, and we just cannot get a journalist to give a crap for the life of us. And originally I was like, yeah, what the hell happened? Like, did we say something or do something wrong, or were we secretly making a bad game this whole time? No, it's just that by the time we had a release date in May of 2017, their inboxes were probably exploded with 40, 50, 60 other emails of the exact same type, and that's not the way it was for a really long time. So I don't know, man. It's hard to say, but I have a feeling it's going to be Tastemakers.
Yeah, I'm curious about that as well. But Tastemakers is interesting too, though, because you mentioned this earlier. Total Biscuit sponsored you, and I'm not even
right.
I'm 30 years old. I don't follow a ton of YouTube celebrities. He's big. Like, I've heard of him. Like, he is up there for like whatever the game of the year at the end of the year award thing is. He's up there for like
right.
YouTube personality, nominations.
Yeah, right.
How did that not bring a crazy spike to you guys? Because he is big time.
That's a good question. I don't really know. Like, I don't think it's ever going to be I don't think it's ever going to be solved by one tastemaker saying, hey, do this. I think it's going to require that critical massing where it's like the role of the journalist has kind of been passed on to these tastemakers, but no one user is ever going to sell a thing. Like, unless it was so interesting and so compelling in the first place that everyone sort of picks it up organically, like Cuphead, which, by the way, also
it's amazing,
which is fucking everywhere in the whole world, But they granted also had Microsoft support, but like everyone thought Cuphead was interesting, whereas something like Aztez is definitely more niche. So we kind of didn't have that advantage there, but yeah, I don't know, man. It's a whole lot of questions that I don't have the answers to, and it's endlessly frustrating.
Yeah, and I apologize. I don't mean to frustrate you at all. I'm
not frustrating you. No. It's just the meta frustration of the whole situation.
Oh, yeah, because that's one of those interesting things, because I kind of equate Aztez to like a Stardew Valley like game, where it's something that you can tell there's a lot of heart poured into it, and it's got its own aesthetic and style, but somehow Stardew Valley hit astronomical numbers out of nowhere, and I don't know if that's
yeah. It kind of seems like that was right before, like right as the critical mass of too many things every day happened. Like, Stardew Valley might have snuck in there just the right time.
January 2016, man. They still had a chance back then. Mm-hmm, I want to say it was like summer 2016 where Steam started getting the big spikes, but it was really this year that I noticed where we started getting the 2,000 games a month. And did you guys enter your game before they changed the Greenlight policies, where now you just spend $100, or?
No, we had actually already gotten traditional approval prior to Greenlight happening. So one of our investors had a connection and said, can we just backdoor these guys? And they said yes. So we lucked out. We didn't have to deal or think about Greenlight at all. But if we would have had to, things would have happened a little bit different, because for a long time Greenlight eventually became sort of this bad mark. Like, this is a basement thing that snuck in through Greenlight, so maybe don't care about it. And things would have shaken out a little bit differently had we had to do that. So I don't know, it's weird to think about.
Yeah, it's crazy, because Greenlight started off as a pretty good system. Like, a game that got greenlit was really cool. But it's so bad now that they I don't remember what it's called now, but they changed it again, and it's just you pay $100 and your game goes on Steam regardless of what it is.
Yeah, right. And honestly, I supported it. I was a big fan of it in the beginning, but what happened was, instead of going okay, here's the top 5 games that people have been voting for, we're going to usher them in. They just started doing these broad sweeps of 40 games, top 40 year in, next week top 40 year in, and then they started app storing themselves with just shoveling stuff in. So at that point, I think that's when it clearly shifted to this isn't necessarily a mark of quality. So here we are.
Yeah, it's kind of a frustrating thing that you just see in gaming everywhere. I mentioned, I play the Switch a lot, and it's when it first came out, it only had a few games, and if they were released, it didn't mean they were quality. There were still some like app games that got on there.
Oh, sure.
But
right.
last week or 2 weeks ago, 18 games released, and I felt like, man, if they did a little bit of curation, I feel like everybody would have a better shot. But we're getting to this point now where it's not the scary levels of the Wii where you got M&M Go-Kart Racing and some 900 other games, but it's getting crazy. So I'm hoping you guys have, short term, like get Aztez on there quick, because I'm worried for 2018 Switch, because Xbox One store and PlayStation store, I can't even go through them most of the time. There's just too much stuff.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah, and that's a concern of ours too. It's like the certification thing is always going to be a problem that we can't really get around. It really does seem like everything inevitably becomes an open market, because like as the gatekeeper, Steam, Nintendo, Xbox, doesn't matter. Every single crappy little thing you put on the service is going to be making you a tiny bit of money. Even if it's real bad and 10 people buy it, that still made you a couple bucks. So it's like they have every reason in the world to eventually just completely open the doors and be like, all right, come in, little cash cows, no matter how microscopic you are.
Yeah, and that's the funny thing. That's why you see the people who release the games that took maybe, an hour or two to put together with all stolen assets, because,
exactly.
They make $100, whatever. They do that.
Right.
So it's crazy. But to more positive things, have you had, I know it sounds like you've been busy, like crazy busy, but have you had any chance to play any games recently?
Yeah, I actually, I borrowed a PlayStation from a friend so I could play Bloodborne.
Oh, that's a great game.
Because I finally, I do combat consultation on the side, and that's a really great gig. But a client of mine recently was basically trying to emulate Dark Souls, which I have traditionally hated. I hated those games for a long time. And so I bought Dark Souls 3 when I started working with this client, just to start to mutilate it and figure out what it's all about. And then, suddenly 20 hours have passed. I was like, oh my God, I like Dark Souls. And so I ended up getting sucked in and drinking the Kool-Aid, and then Bloodborne has just been 100% delightful.
Yeah, Dark Souls 3 is a great one to jump in. I kind of had, I echoed your sentiments. The first one is, it's just, it's clunky. It's just an old clunky game. So it's kind of hard to get into.
Right.
I didn't even play 2 because they had, like, punishment where if you died, you lost your health, like, more, like, max health till you could get some expendable items. So I was like, that doesn't sound good. But 3 was like, hey, this is casual as Dark Souls come, so it's a lot of fun.
Yes.
Like you.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, that's how, man. That's
yeah. I really appreciated discovering it and enjoying it. I kind of have to thank that client at the end of the day for making me do that. Because if they weren't building that specific thing, I never in a million years would have grabbed it and tried it again. So
what? Okay, so you mentioned you like brawlers, but I can't, beyond Aztez, I can't really think of a really, really good brawler that came out in the last, I don't even know, 5 years. I mean, Mother Russia is the only one I can even think of, and that's like the Devolver game.
Oh, sure. Well, I also consider I might have a slightly broader definition. I consider stuff like Nier beat-ups.
Okay, Nier is great.
And that happened, and that actually did really, really well. But I was sitting there, feeling sort of hopeful when I looked at Nier has sold X million units, and I was like, wow, because that's such an incredibly Japanese game, still doing really, really well everywhere, and that's really hopeful, But the more I started talking to people about Nier after the Aztez launch, I realized most people weren't really buying it for the action. They were buying it because they liked these characters, and they were actually there for the story, and like beat 'em up mechanics are sort of just like the icing instead of the cake. You know what I mean? And I just had this delusion as this insane passionate beat 'em up fan that it was the other way around. So Nier is a really interesting case.
It's kind of crazy. I think people really took to the visual style and the aesthetics of that game, and wanted to like I've played a little bit of it. I do really enjoy it, but it is in a year of games that are all 40 plus hours, and
right.
This is a crazy year. So I played a little bit of it. I enjoyed it, but yeah, I don't know if I'll get to ending E. I don't know if you've played through.
I'm familiar with the idea. Yeah, there's you have that whole tier of different characters with all their endings, and
yeah, I would think one thing that could give you hope is that the first Nier did terribly. So,
oh right,
this
yeah,
one,
right, that's true.
Yeah,
I don't think it was wasn't it more of a wasn't it more of an RPG style game though, with like just kind of like walking around and talking? And I don't remember it honestly, but I was under the impression it was not an action game.
It was an action RPG, but you might be right with like how much action there was. It might be way more about talking to people than it was about fighting. I didn't ever play it because it came out in, I want to say, near 2007, which also had like BioShock and all the other big games. Like,
yeah, right.
It was in another year where it's like,
that was a rough year.
It's like, oh, this is already, Call of Duty, Modern Warfare, and Mass Effect, and every other game on Earth. How am I going to find time to play?
The year of our Lord 2000 and BioShock, man. Like, that was such an insane, crazy AAA year.
Yeah, man. Well, we've hit another one this year, and you mentioned to me you had a Switch, right?
Yeah, I do.
Did you get a chance to play either Breath of the Wild or the recently released Super Mario Odyssey?
Breath of the Wild is why I got the Switch,
to be
honest. I played... The weirdest thing happened, man. I put maybe 60, 70 hours into it. I was just playing it every night, just laying in bed, having a great time. And then I got, like... I'm pretty sure it was at the end, because I could now approach the castle. And then, like, emotionally, I had to put the Switch on the shelf and be like, I need this to not be beaten so that I know it's there in the future. Like, because I don't ever restart games. Like, I beat them unless it's a beat 'em up. And so, like, I haven't beaten it yet on purpose because mentally, emotionally, I need to know it's there waiting for me.
It's always going to be there, man.
I've never done that before in my life, but that is how much I loved that game to death. Like, I don't want to see the conclusion until, like, I'm good and ready for it or I'm having a bad day.
Yeah, I love that idea. It's waiting for it.
Yeah, no, it's so strange, man. But yeah, like, it's a little ray of hope knowing that it's there waiting for me. But Mario Odyssey, Matthew actually purchased, the other half of the company. And when he's done chewing through it, I'm just going to take it from him and do the same. So.
I mean, I know you guys are probably crazy busy with work and stuff, but it's not very long. I've only probably been able to put maybe 12, 15 hours in. Unless he's going to get every moon, he'll probably be able to beat the game.
Oh, no,
like, quick.
He's a beeliner for sure. Like, he's just going to chew through, like, the main quests, which is what he does with every game. But it looks amazing. I mean, I'll end up discovering all the crazy stuff and exploring all the mechanics because that's my jam. Like, when it comes to games like that are more sandboxy and all about mechanics, like, I'm going to chew on that for a while.
Yeah, that's what I'm all about too. Well, I don't want to keep you too much longer, but I do have a question that I've been asking people to give is, I know we've talked about how it hasn't worked out yet for you guys, and I'm very hopeful that you guys are going to have a really, really cool, solid month when the Switch and Xbox and PS4 launch. But what is, like, some advice you could leave to listeners who are trying to pursue, like, maybe not a video game career, but just, like, the ability to, like, make a game? Like, you guys did something that, even if, and I'm hoping you guys make buco bucks off it, it doesn't. You guys did something that is very hard. You released a game, and you released a game that is both aesthetically pleasing and good and has a lot of heart. That's a huge accomplishment.
Right.
You didn't release, like, guy walks 2 blocks, jumps off the cliff, game over,
Sure,
So what advice would you give to someone who's trying to do that, to try to release what they want to release?
I mean, I would say... I'm realizing this has been slightly refined by recent experiences, but I would say, most importantly, regardless of what it is you want to make, be small. Like don't do the thing where you get a whole bunch of people together and you suddenly you're out of money instantly.
Yeah.
Right? Get together with a friend, get together with 2 friends tops, and try and make something you think is cool. The reason we are not completely broken by the failure of Aztez is because we intentionally, like, did things cheap. Like the amount of units that we needed to sell to start paying our guys back was extremely low. And we will eventually pay them back only because we intentionally, like, maintained this really low scale, And so that's what I always tell people. It doesn't matter what you want to make. Do it as small as possible and don't put a whole bunch of eggs in any one basket because then you're just going to ruin the rest of your life, right? As far as, like, going and actually making the thing, do something simple. Like, find the purest version of what you're trying to make, like a platformer, a beat 'em up, a weird sports game, a puzzle game, and just make that thing and finish it and give it to people and see what happens. There's so many crazy things you can get caught up in your journey to ship, but if you've never shipped the thing, you need to do that first. So yeah, I mean, I've taught classes at the local like technical schools and universities, and that's the thing I always tell them. It's like, get together in the evenings, make a game, ship it, and you're going to learn so much just from doing that, that when you go in for round 2, and this is the thing you're passionate about, you're infinitely more equipped. You know,
that sounds like super sage advice, man, because learning how to ship one thing, I've only done it for music,
Right.
is a totally new ballpark.
Oh yeah, and it just gives you so much perspective and valuable insight that like you don't end up squandering that thing that you were really in love with. You know.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. It's been a pleasure talking to you, dude. I'm hoping that
you too.
maybe when when Aztez is on Switch and you guys have made $1 million and you're on your next project, you can talk with us again, man.
Hey, I'll be back anytime, man. You just give me the
Okay,
word.
thank you, Ben. You have a good day. Okay.
Yeah, thanks so much. You too.
Bye. Thank you all for listening. If you'd like, you can email us at superbscast@gmail.com. You can also find us on Instagram and Twitter at superbs and superbsgamescast. Hope you enjoyed that. If you get a chance, check out Aztez on Steam or just even Google it and watch some videos. We're looking forward to it coming out on Switch, Xbox, and PlayStation later on. Thanks, and we hope to hear from you. If you get a chance, please rate and review us on iTunes.
Oh, yeah.
That's to us people that can feel things. It hurts. It hurts. It hurts. It hurts.